such an article on here. So here we are going to do speaker with about 45 minutes with their presentation. After that, we're going to have 45 minutes for questions, commentaries, whatever. Our first speaker, Dr. Ricardo Salles, with a presentation titled Why is Void Incorporeal? Dr. Salles, thank you very much for organizing this event and for sharing your ideas with us. Please begin with your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, thank you all. So I'll just read. It's not really a handout. It's more like a summary of the presentation. So I'll just read. You have a copy of what I will read with you, but you can just listen and. The text is also projected there. So very well. Void, no? And in Stoicism, void is the only incorporeal whose incorporeality is explicitly argued for. But what are exactly the arguments? Well, void is the spatial extension that surrounds the cosmos. And given this identity, when the Stoics claim that void is incorporeal, they mean that this extension is deprived of bodies or empty. The arguments cited as proofs of this claim in the ancient sources, however, haven't been correctly understood in modern scholarship. It hasn't been fully appreciated that they can only prove the much weaker claim or thesis that there is some extracosmic extension, and they are invalid to prove that this extension is free of bodies or empty. To solve this puzzle, I argue not that the Stoics were unaware of the invalidity of the arguments, although it is a possibility that I cannot discard, right? But so my thesis is not that the Stoics were unaware of the invalidity of the arguments, but rather, that first, the proofs they actually developed to establish the incorporeality of void are not extant. And second, that these missing proofs may have been based on Zeno's theory of the cohesion of the cosmos, reported in Arius Didymus, fragment 23, a theory that scholars usually leave aside when explaining the incorporeality of void. So, what does void is incorporeal mean? What does the thesis mean exactly? Here, there are two readings or possibilities. One is that it is a claim, that's one way of reading the thesis, as a claim that is trivially true given the definitions of void and body. So void is extension deprived of bodies, that's what defines void, which implies lack of resistance, but anything corporeal is resistant. So it's a claim that is trivially true given the definitions of body and void itself. But there is another way of reading the thesis, and this way is reading it as a substantive claim that requires proof. Namely that void, given that void is the entity that surrounds the cosmos, void is incorporeal means that the entity that surrounds the cosmos is deprived of bodies. So I call this the specific claim. And well, in my paper, in my presentation, I'd concentrate on the specific claim, but refer to the definitional claim, which is the first one in section 1. So what are the arguments for the specific claim? There are two arguments. One is the hand argument, as I call it, according to which if I stand at the edge of the cosmos, I will be able to stretch my hand outwards. That's one argument. And the other argument, classic argument, is the conflagration argument, according to which the periodic conflagration of the cosmos implies an expansion that needs room. So both are valid to prove that there is an extracosmic extension, as I shall argue, but not that this extension is deprived of bodies. And a similar problem affects the argument for the infinity of void. This argument only proves the infinity of some extracosmic extension, but not of a void that would be infinite. So my claim, as I said earlier, is that we must hypothesize two things. One is that the Stoics developed three distinct families of arguments for three distinct theses. So one is the thesis that there is an extracosmic extension. The other thesis is that the extracosmic extension is deprived of bodies or empty, which is the specific claim. And C, the thesis that extracosmic void is infinitely large. So that's one thing that we must hypothesize. No, this threefold thesis about extracosmic things, and that there are three families of arguments, one for each thesis. And the other thing that we must hypothesize is that the arguments for the specific claim are not extant. So if this is correct, then the arguments cited as proofs of the specific claim are not the proofs that the Stoics actually developed to establish the thesis, but proofs aimed at securing either A or C. Furthermore, I also offer, as I said earlier, as a conjecture that the missing arguments for B, for the specific claim, may be found in Zeno's theory of cosmic cohesion in Arius Didymus, fragment 23. So my argument is divided into 5 sections. In the first one, I explain the definitional claim and how void differs from place, topos, and space, hora. Then in sections 2 and 3, I deal with the specific claim and the hand and conflagration arguments. In section 4, I talk about the unlimitedness argument, which is the third argument I mentioned earlier for the infinity of extracosmic extension. And in section 5, I return to the idea that there are three families of arguments, and I explain Zeno's theory of cosmic cohesion as a possible basis for the actual arguments, but missing arguments for the existence of extracosmic void. So now I will only present parts of sections 1 and 3. I will skip section 4, and I will deal with section 5 as well. So the definitional claim. So void, kenon, to kenon, place, topos, and space are all species of extension, diastema. And extension also defines time, or chronos. And diastema involves, when applied to spatial entities, not to time, when it applies to spatial entities such as void, topos, and hora, it implies the notion of three-dimensionality. Well, the difference between place and void is fairly straightforward, not absolutely straightforward, but fairly straightforward. But it isn't fully clear how they both differ from hora. No, that's an issue of discussion in Stoic scholarship. So the main passages are given here in the handout. One is an Aetius passage, the other is Tobeos, and the third is a Sextus Empiricus passage. So I will read them. The translations. Void, place, and space are different. Void is the absence of body, place is that which is occupied by a body, and space is that which is partly occupied, as in the case of the barrel of wine. I think that's a better translation. Now, Stobeos of Chrysippus. Chrysippus declared place to be what is occupied through and through by an existent, or what can be occupied by an existent and is through and through occupied whether by one thing or by several things. And if what is able to be occupied is partly occupied by what is and partly not, the whole will be neither void nor place, but another unnamed thing. For the void is spoken of similarly to empty containers, and place similarly to full ones. And then comes this sentence, which some people, such as Long and Sedley, translate as a question, but it doesn't have to be a question. So is space what is able to be occupied by what is only bigger, and as it were a larger container for a body, or is it what has room for a larger body? So, okay. Now the Sextus Empiricus passage. The Stoics say that void is what can be occupied by an existent but is not occupied, or an interval empty of body, or an interval unoccupied by body. Place is what is occupied by an existent and made equal to what occupies it. By existent, they now mean body, as is clear from the interchange of names. And they say that space is an extension partly occupied by a body, and partly unoccupied. Some have said that space is the place of the larger body, since the difference between place and space lies in that the former doesn't reveal the size of the encompassed body. For even if it encompasses the smallest body, it is no less called place, while the latter reveals the considerable size of the body in it. So this is again long and sadly. So void. What is void? Void is an extension, diastema, that in contrast with place can be, but actually isn't, occupied by a body. This is the definition. This is the definitional claim. No? I think the three passages agree on this. Now, place is something. It isn't called an extension, a diastema, unlike void and space, but we can assume that it is also an extension. So it is something actually occupied by a body. Now, something that is noteworthy in T1b, the Stobaeus passage, is that the text says that place is what can and is occupied by a body. So how should we understand this conjunction? Well, one hypothesis is this, is that a place that is actually occupied by a body, B1, can be occupied by a body, B2, distinct from B1. And it will be occupied by B2 either if B1 leaves, that place and is substituted by B2, as when I stand up and someone sits in my place. Or, if B1 stays put but is pervaded by B2 through what the Stoics call krasis, the blending, as when a mass of water is pervaded by heat. So in that case, it's not that the water recedes or leaves and heat comes to occupy the place that was left by the water, but the water stays there and heat penetrates the water and occupies, together with the water, the place occupied by the water. So that's one hypothesis, Vanessa knows well this text. We may discuss this more, but in any case, something that is noteworthy here is that this definition of place doesn't explain why place is incorporeal. Well, this is not at all clear, and the reason why I say this is simple. So, given the possibility of krasis, of blending, so a body B1 actually occupied by a body B2 can be occupied by a body B3, right? Distinct from B1 and B2. If B3 can blend with B1 and B2, So think of mulled wine, and this drink that we don't drink here in Mexico because it's for very cold climates, but you all know what is mulled wine. So mulled wine is a mass of water actually occupied by a mass of heat, and which is also occupied by a mass of wine, given that the wine can blend with the water and the heat, right? So it's three bodies in the same place. Of course, I mean, in modern physics, that's not true, right? Because there is no such thing as blending according to modern physics. But from a Stoic point of view, that's what happens, And it's the three bodies, they occupy all at the same time, the same place, they collocate, That's a technical term used in discussions of this issue. So, but even more simply, if place, so given that it's not clear why a place has to be incorporeal, I mean, it could be a body, no? And even more simply, no? If place is something that is actually occupied by a body, then given that a body can be actually occupied by a body, a place doesn't have to be incorporeal. It can be a body. A body can be a place. So place doesn't have to be incorporeal. Contrary to what the Stoics claim, no? When they include place in the list of 4 incorporeals. Never mind. So apparently something doesn't have to be incorporeal to satisfy the definition of place. Now space hora is also an extension, but one that includes some place and some void. It is an interval partly occupied by a body and partly unoccupied. No? Now, since there is no intracosmic void in the Stoic cosmos, there is no void in the cosmos, and no extracosmic body, so any space, any hora, must straddle the divide between the cosmos and the extracosmic void. So the part of it that is not actually occupied by a body is outside the cosmos, and the part of it that is actually occupied by one is inside. So one hypothesis, no, that has been defended by many scholars is that space is just the sum of the extension currently occupied by the cosmos and the extension currently empty that the cosmos will occupy when it grows and expands during the conflagration. That's space. That's these 2 extensions. One that is occupied and the other that will be. So it's the sum of the 2. Now, so let's now focus on the main topic of my presentation, which are the 2 arguments for extracosmic void. So I begin with the hand argument. So why is extracosmic extension really deprived of bodies? No? This is the specific claim, and the hand and conflagration arguments are invalid to prove it, as we shall see. The hand argument is a Stoic adaptation of Archytas, apud Simplicius, no? in the physics. So Simplicius, this is the translation, it's also borrowed. It's again long and sadly, no? So the Stoics want there to be a void outside the cosmos and prove it through the following assumption. Let someone stand at the edge of the fixed sphere, I mean the last sphere in the cosmos, and stretch out his hand upwards. If he does stretch it out, they take it that something exists outside the cosmos into which he has stretched it. And if he cannot stretch it out, there will be something outside which prevents him from doing so. And if he should next stand at the limit of this and stretch out his hand, a similar question will arise, for something which is also outside that point will have been shown to exist. So what is the argument? It is apparently very clear and simple, but in fact it isn't. No? So the argument starts from a disjunction. If I stand at the edge of the cosmos and try to stretch my hand outwards, then either A, I will be able to stretch it, or B, I will not. Okay, that's the starting point. In either case, the text says there is something, T, outside the cosmos. If A, the thing in question is something S1, no, into which is Ho, I stretch it. And if B, the thing in question is something S2 that prevents me from doing so. Now, what are S1 and S2? I mean, the text doesn't say, but one conjecture is that S1 is void, empty extension, which is that into which I stretch my hand. And S2 is a body. And it is a body because it is something that prevents me from stretching my hand. So if that is correct, then if I stretch my hand, the conclusion is reached. There is extracosmic void. But if B, the conclusion is not reached yet. And what we have to do according to the argument, I mean, it's an invitation, no? We have to travel to the edge of S2, which is this body, this something bodily, I think, at the edge of S2, and then do again the experiment, right? So why is the argument invalid? Well, to reach the conclusion that there is extracosmic void, which is officially, according to Simplicius, the conclusion of the argument, no? Exo to uranu kenon einai. To reach the conclusion that there is extracosmic void, we need two additional steps. First, we need the cancellation of option B, for B proves that there is an extracosmic body, not void. Second, we need to assume the assumption, the thesis that S1 is not a body thinner than my hand. For example, a mass of air or water, where I could stretch my hand outwards if the cosmos were surrounded by water or air, as when I submerge my hand in a pool. No? So as the argument stands, the conclusion that there is extracosmic void as opposed to extracosmic body, for example, it doesn't follow. But there is another possibility, and this is that the argument wasn't intended to prove that there is extracosmic void, but just that there is extracosmic extension. In this case, the argument is valid and very straightforward, I think. So, one, if I stand at the edge of the cosmos, I will either be able to stretch my hand outwards or not. But if I can stretch it out, then that into which I stretch it is either an extracosmic extension deprived of body, or a body thinner than my hand. And three, if I cannot stretch it, there is an extracosmic body denser, thicker than my hand. Therefore, the conclusion is that in either case, there is an extracosmic extension. No? So the argument is valid. Now, so the question here I want to consider is that is Simplicius misreporting the Stoics? Because if this or something like it was the original Stoic proof, then Simplicius must have misreported it. Now, this is surely possible. No? In addition, we know that Simplicius also reports the argument of Archytas, and that the argument of Archytas is very similar to the one that Simplicius attributes to the Stoics in T2a. So this opens the specific possibility that Simplicius didn't distinguish the two arguments properly, and that both reports are contaminated by the other. I mean, his two reports. A detailed comparison between the two reports is worth undertaking, but it falls beyond the scope of this paper. But we may have a quick look at Simplicius's report of Archytas, no? Which is a report of Eudemos on Archytas, right? The source of Simplicius is Eudemos, probably through Theophrastus. I don't know. I don't remember if Simplicius had a direct access to Eudemos, or if his access to Eudemos is through Theophrastus. But we can discuss this. So the arguments of Simplicius. How am I doing? Time? Yeah. Okay. So the argument in Simplicius reporting Eudemos on Archytas is this. Archytas, according to Eudemos, put the question this way. If I came to be at the edge, for example, at the heaven of the fixed stars, could I stretch my hand or my stick outside or not? That I shouldn't stretch it out would be absurd. But if I do stretch it out, what is outside will be either a body or a place. It will make no difference, as we shall discover. Thus, Archytas will always go in the same way to the freshly chosen limit and will ask the same question. If it is always something different into which the stick is stretched, it will clearly be something infinite. If it is a body, the thesis has been demonstrated. While if it is a place, and place is that in which body exists or could exist, and in the case of eternal things, we must treat what could exist as actually existing, then on this option, too, body will be infinite and so will place. So there are three major differences between the argument here and the argument in T2a. First, the conclusion intended by Archytas is not that there is extracosmic void, but that there is an infinitely large extracosmic body occupying an infinitely large extracosmic extension. The argument in T2C, is this last passage, uses a strong version of the so-called principle of plenitude. Now, so in the case of eternal things, we must treat what could exist as actually existing. And this is also present in Aristotle's discussion of Archytas in Physics 3:4. What Aristotle says in his report of this argument, which is very brief, and he doesn't mention Archytas by name, but I mean, it is his argument. He says, in the case of eternal things, what may be is. No? So in T2C, that's the third difference. I can always stretch my hand, even if what is outside is a body. In contrast, in T2A, I cannot stretch it out precisely if, in one interpretation of the text, what is outside is a body. Now, if we set aside these three differences, the arguments are quite similar. So it is possible that when Simplicius reported the Stoic version, he distinguished clearly the two conclusions: Stoics, there is extracosmic void; Archytas, there is extracosmic body, but conflated the two arguments, failing to bring out how exactly the Stoics reached their conclusion. Now, all this, of course, is conjectural, but what is important here is that it is possible. Okay. Now, the conflagration argument. The conflagration argument is this, no? So it's a text by Cleomedes, a Stoic philosopher. Well, there is some discussion about whether he is a Stoic or an astronomer with Stoic sympathies. But what he says is this: we can also conceive of the cosmos itself moving from the place that it currently happens to occupy, and together with the displacement of it, we shall also at the same time conceive of the place abandoned by the cosmos as void, and the place into which it is transferred as taken over and occupied by it. The latter place must be filled void. If, according to the doctrine of the most accomplished natural philosophers, namely the Stoics, the whole substance of the cosmos is also reduced to fire, it must occupy an immensely larger place, as do solid bodies that are vaporized into fumes. Therefore, the place occupied in the conflagration by the substance of the cosmos when it expands is currently void, since nobody fills it. This is the translation by Bowen and Todd. Now, the origin of the argument is an important question here, because it is not original of Cleomedes, who lived, according to the specialists, in the late 2nd century after death. And it isn't, and it's not original of Cleomedes because Posidonius, early 1st century BC, corrects an earlier version of the argument. So the argument may go back to the early Stoics. This is important because if Cleomedes is reporting other Stoics rather than developing his own views, as he often does in the Caelestia, the treatise from which this is passage, and this is discussed by Inwood, for example, in his book on late Stoicism. So if he is reporting other Stoics rather than developing his own views, it follows that the original version of the argument, or its original purpose, may differ from that actually presented in his reports. So here too, it is possible that Cleomedes is misreporting the original argument. Now, how does the argument work? It's very simple. At the conflagration, the cosmos expands, so there must be some extracosmic extension that becomes occupied by the expanding cosmos. Therefore, there must be extracosmic void. Well, premises 1 and 2 are unproblematic as far as I can see. But 3, the conclusion that there must be extracosmic void, doesn't follow from 1 and 2. Why not? Because first, the fire of the conflagration could drive out an extracosmic body and occupy its place. just push it. That's one possibility. The other is that fire could blend with an extracosmic body, in which case the expansion of the cosmos would take place in a bodily plenum rather than in a void. In either case, the expansion is compatible with the existence of extracosmic bodies. No? So it's useful here to look at the evidence for krasis, no? for blending in Stoic physics. So just a very quick look at the text. These are two texts by Alexander of Aphrodisias. So one says that other mixtures, he says, Chrysippus, occur through certain substances and their qualities being mutually coextended in their entirety and preserving their original substance and qualities in such a mixture. This mixture is blending, krasis, in the strict sense of the term. The mutual through and through coextension of two or even more whole bodies so that each of them preserves its own substance and its qualities in such a mixture. This, he says, alone of the mixture is blending, for it is a peculiarity of bodies that have been blended that they can be separated again from one another, and this only occurs through the blended bodies preserving their own nature in the mixture. This is the translation by Todd. The text is very difficult, I find it, but this is Todd. So the other passage, also translated by Todd, is this, is that they employ as clear evidence that this is the case, the fact that the soul, which has its own substantiality, just like the body that receives it, pervades the whole of the body while preserving its own substantiality in the mixture with it. For there is nothing in the body possessing the soul that doesn't partake of the soul. And the same holds for the nature of plants, and as also the tenor in bodies held together by their tenor. Also, they say that fire passes completely through iron, with each of them preserving its own substance. So just a brief comment on these passages. Is it possible for a heterogeneous body to pervade another body? For example, could a tree pervade a horse? Or is the idea rather that only the homogeneous components of a heterogeneous body can pervade another body? Here, a tree couldn't pervade a horse, but the fire contained in the tree could, and vice versa, no? And in principle. Now, the theory of blending is not explicitly, doesn't deal explicitly with this particular issue, I think, but the examples given by Alexander suggest that the latter is the case, and so do the examples that we find in other sources. For example, in Diogenes Laertius, where a drop of wine can blend with the whole sea, which are examples of homogeneous bodies in Stoicism. So apparently, krasis is only possible either between homogeneous bodies or between the homogeneous components of heterogeneous bodies. But this question doesn't affect the argument. However we interpret the theory, it allows for two bodies to pervade one another if both are homogeneous, as would be the case with the fire of the conflagration when it expands into a hypothetical extracosmic body B. And in fact, it would expand either in B itself or in the homogeneous components of B, right? So, there is this possibility, and this expansion, therefore, would take place in a bodily plenum. So we don't need a void for the expansion. So to secure the specific claim through the conflagration argument, we need additional reasons, first, for precluding that the expansion occurs by the blending of fire with another body. And second, additional reasons for precluding that this expansion doesn't occur by displacing another body. So now to conclude, what may have been the argument for the specific claim? No? So I return here to the hypothesis that there may have been three families of arguments or three distinct theses. One is that there is extracosmic extension. The other is that the extracosmic extension is deprived of bodies or empty, which is the specific claim. And C, the extracosmic extension is infinitely large. So this is one part of the hypothesis I want to develop. The second part is that the hand and conflagration arguments belong to the first family, and the unlimitedness argument to the third. And the third part of my hypothesis is that the arguments that belong to the second family are not extant. Now, what may have been then the arguments for the specific claim? One may be extracted from Zeno's explanation of the cohesion of the cosmos. Of Zeno, everything in the so I read the passage. It's a passage from Stobaeus. So the text says, of Zeno, everything in the cosmos which is constituted by its own tenor has parts which move towards the center of the whole, and the same holds for the parts of the cosmos itself. It is therefore correct to say that all the parts of the cosmos move towards its center, and particularly those with weight. There is an identical explanation both for the cosmos's stable position in infinite void and similarly for the Earth's being settled in the cosmos with equivalence at its center. However, body doesn't necessarily have weight. Air and fire are weightless, but they too extend in a way to the center of the whole sphere of the cosmos, and they produce cohesion of the center with its periphery. For they are naturally upward moving owing to their having no share in weight. Similarly, they say that the cosmos itself doesn't have weight since it is entirely composed of elements which do have weight and ones which do not. The whole Earth, in their view, doesn't have weight intrinsically. From its position, by virtue of its central location and the fact that such heavy bodies move towards the center, it remains in this place. This is long and sadly. Now, the elements are divided. So two ideas here I think are important to highlight. One is that the elements are divided into two classes. Those that have weight, water and earth, and those that are weightless, abare. No, that's the term, fire and air. Weightless means that they lack weight, but also that they tend to move away from the center of the cosmos, i.e. upwards. So the key sentence here is they are naturally upward moving owing to their having no share in weight. Or their weightlessness explains that they move away from the center. That's the first idea. The second idea is that the centripetal action of breath on fire and air counteracts their tendency to move upwards. This is very important. Thanks to breath, they too extend in a way to the center of the whole sphere of the cosmos. The idea here, I think, is not that the centripetal force of breath is stronger than the tendency to move upwards of fire and air. No? If that were so, fire and air would end up moving downwards. So the idea is rather that an equilibrium, thank you. The idea is rather that an equilibrium is reached between the two forces, which causes them to remain stationary above Earth. And this explains why they do not disperse in the extracosmic extension that surrounds the cosmos. So what is the argument? The central idea in the argument I think we may extract from this theory. The central idea is just that there are no extracosmic bodies. And the argument is this, is that first premise, an extracosmic body would have to possess a tendency for upward motion that is so strong that it could escape the pool of breath. But B, no such body could exist because nothing is thinner than fire. So the argument itself, would be the following. So one is that the ability of fire and air to move upwards is proportional to their thinness. Therefore, an extracosmic body would have to be thinner than fire to escape the pool of breath. But necessarily, fire is the thinnest of all elements. Therefore, no element thinner than air is possible. And hence, no extracosmic body is possible either. So this argument is also conjectural. There is no textual evidence that it was actually developed by Zeno. It's just a hypothesis. No, it's an argument that they may have developed to prove that there is no extracosmic body and therefore that there is extracosmic void. So just to conclude, two main theses. No, I have defended two main theses. No, one is that the proofs for the specific claim, extracosmic extension is empty. That's the specific claim. Are not extant. What we have instead are proofs that there is an extracosmic extension, and that the extracosmic void is infinitely large. I'm referring here to an argument that I discussed in section 4 that I didn't read. That's one idea. And the other is an argument for the specific claim, is that an argument for the specific claim may have been based on Zeno's theory of the cohesion of the cosmos. Why? Well, as I just said, this is because this theory precludes the existence of extracosmic bodies, which is exactly what is needed once the existence of extracosmic extension has been established to prove that the extracosmic extension is empty. Okay, and well, just one last remark. Given the Stoic theory of blending, the incorporeality of place, I want just to make a brief comment on the incorporeality of place and the canonical list of incorporeals. So I have argued that given the Stoic theory of blending, a body B1 actually occupied by a body B2 can be occupied by a body B3, distinct from B1 and B2 if B3 can blend with B1 and B2, like it's the mulled wine example, right? But then that's the definition of place, no? I mean, so a body can satisfy the definition of place, which means that place doesn't have to be incorporeal. So the problem that affects place and void invites us to reflect on the whole list of incorporeals and to rethink the grounds for the incorporeality of its items. Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Salles, for this presentation. Now we have for 6 minutes to discuss. I think it will be easier if everyone wants to ask a question, raises their time when not, and I will assign you a number. Please don't forget the number, so you can lower your time. So questions, commentaries, please.
Thank you. I like this idea that it could be a body, indeed a rarer body that's outside. I hadn't thought about that. But I'm wondering, and this might be related to, I'm not sure I totally understand the difference between the trivial claim and the substantive claim. And so my question is, why is it not enough for the Stoics to have said that the totality of substance is the totality of substance that is the cosmos, and for that to be enough to rule out that what's outside is a body? So like in EL 7-150, I think this gets said, but also in other places where like that just is the totality of substance, and that is what is contained in the cosmos or the whole on.
Right. But wouldn't you need an argument for? I mean, why would the cosmos be the totality of substance?
Well, I guess that's what I'm wondering. If maybe what you're going for is something more than a statement of fact by them, and something more like it's impossible that there should be. Because I see that the argument that you give does have that, and sometimes I think we see these arguments without needing to, or something like that. Yeah.
No, of course.
Well, are you going to add something, or just that? Well, okay. Well, look, yes, of course. I mean, you can say, well, I mean, they don't have to give arguments for this claim that you mentioned now, no? That the cosmos is the totality of substance, no? And just they start from that assumption, and from there they build a very impressive cosmology, you know. But they don't have arguments for that particular claim, which is very basic. Yes, I mean, you can say that, but no, I'm just wondering, no? I mean, why do they say that? No, I mean, Why?
There are arguments for finitude, like that I can think of, that there would be reasons there being sort of infinitely much body. And so from the finitude of substance and the cosmos, you could then get to the claim that it's all here and none of it out there. Although it's not good.
Right, and the reasons for the finitude of body would be?
That you can't give order to something that is infinite.
You cannot order something.
You can't give order to it. It would just be unruly in some way.
That's.
And I think there are things like that that get said.
Yes. Yes, that's true, isn't it? They do say that you cannot, that it's in kilometers, no? That you can, that nature, physics couldn't pervade, couldn't extend through an infinite body. So if you want things to have a nature and to be, and to have a nature and to be informed by nature and ordered by nature, you need a finite. Yeah, well, that's another option, which would complement, I think, the argument that I offer at the end, no? Now, so one thing is this, is that I wonder, no? Why do they say that? So that's one reason. The other one could be perhaps the one I mentioned at the end, but that's one thing. And the other is that the Stoics do offer arguments for that. For the according to the sources, do offer arguments for void, for the existence of extracosmic void. So that's, I think, that's the main worry of my paper. No, okay, they do give arguments according to the sources, but these arguments are invalid. So what I try to argue is that we have a kind of dilemma. No, either we think that these arguments, that the Stoics were unaware of the validity of the arguments, where the invalidity is obvious given their theory of crasis, but also given the intuition that you can displace a body, no? And so either they were unaware of the invalidity of the arguments, or, well, the other option, which is not very palatable either, is that the sources are misreporting the argument. And in fact, these arguments that are reported are not arguments for the infinity of void, but arguments that belong to a system of arguments where there are three theses, no? And so yes, given that there are arguments for the infinity of void, it's worth asking, well, how good are they, and can they prove what they intend to prove? No?
Thank you, Ricardo. I had several small questions, but I'll just ask one and then rejoin the queue. Part of your like the beginning of your discussion focused on one of the reasons why these arguments are invalid is because it's possible that a body could occupy another body, right? External to the cosmos.
Yes.
And part of the justification for that was the Stoic theory process, right?
Yes.
Not convinced that when two bodies blend, that I would say that one body occupies the other body. The language used, at least, is different. So the language used in terms of body occupying place or not occupying void, it's not the same as the language used in blending, where it's like coextension, pervasion. And it doesn't seem to me that when, for example, the fire blends with the iron, I would want to say that the fire occupies the iron, because in order for that to be true, it would need to wholly fill the extension that is wholly filled by the iron, which doesn't seem to be how blending works, right? They divide each other infinitely. That's at least one account of it.
Yes.
And so there are parts of a blend. There are parts of the ingredients of the blend have parts which are not pervaded by the other ingredients of the blend, at least. That's what I would say. No, ingredients of the blend are not occupied. Yeah. So I'm just wondering, like, are there more reasons to think that what happens in a blend is one body occupying another body?
Well, that's a very good question. Of course, we have to look at the terminology, no? The term I have been translating following standard translations of these texts. For the term, the Greek term for occupying is endechestai, no? Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. Epehomenon, no? Epechein. To epehomenon hyposomantos, no? What is occupied or what receives, that's in T1A,
Okay.
epechen, and katechein, no? In T1B.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes, I mean, that's something that has to be done, no? To look at the terminology used on the one hand in the definition of place, and the terminology used in the blending theory, no? Now, I have the impression, but I'm not sure, and if it's correct, I don't remember the reference, but there are passages where I would have to look at the text, but the idea that a body can receive another body, and that this is something that void, and that's something that bodies, places, and void have in common.
Awesome.
Yeah. So the language of receiving, I think that you could find it maybe in the Crassus theory, no? Yeah, just let me have a quick look. Yes.
But it's true.
This is something that this is the kind of research that has to be done. Certainly, yeah. Just let me have a quick look at Alexander. Hold on. It's T3B, right? Yes. B like D like dedo.
For example, is hosper kaito the homenon.
How the soma that you translate or translate just like the body that receives it.
Exactly.
That's an example.
Yes, the homenon, which is the term that Aristotle uses when he says that matter, that in perception you receive the form without the matter. Yes, exactly. Well, so thank you, Ian. That's a research that has to be done, and to yes, thanks. Mm-hmm.
Yes, thanks a lot, Ricardo. It's a wonderful talk. I just got, I was a bit puzzled as well by, let's say, a division between the argument, like some arguments that want to show that there is extra cosmic extension, and another argument that wants to show that it's void. I was puzzled about that division for reasons similar to what Vanessa was saying, because I thought that the idea that there is something like the cosmos, there's a limit, seemed to be like some kind of primitive thing, stoic cosmology, ontology, right?
A limit between the cosmos and
there is the cosmos and there's a limit there. All the arguments use that kind of idea, right? So the hand argument and the conflagration argument says, well, look at there is the cosmos and then what's beyond that? So they all assume that there's some kind of limit. So I was puzzled about the idea that we need an argument to show that there's something, let's say, beyond the cosmos. Outside the boundaries of the cosmos.
yes.
And also in relation to the hand argument, I think that I'm not sure how to interpret it, but your interpretation was that, well, you get to the limit and then you stretch your hand, and then you can do it. There's nothing there, so then I mean, according to simplicity, you prove that there is void. And then the other option is that there is something that impedes your progress, and so there's a body there.
Yes.
I think that you interpreted that as saying something like, well, there is a body beyond the limit. But I think the argument is something like, there is a body there, so maybe you didn't reach the limit.
The limit of the cosmos, yes.
So you just get to the limit and then you stretch your hand.
Yeah.
And if you get to the body, then
Yes.
you repeat it until you get to the void. And then you will be there at the limit of the cosmos. So those were the two
Yes, of course.
main worries about it.
Just let me elaborate a bit on what you just said. So the argument in this construal would be an argument for extracosmic void, because if you cannot stretch your hand, this only proves that you haven't reached the limit of the cosmos. So, and if you can, then there is extracosmic void, or I mean, something incorporeal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, only in that case, I mean, no, the argument wouldn't prove that there might be an extracosmic body. It would only prove that there is extracosmic void, because if you cannot stretch it, then this thing that prevents you from stretching your hand is not outside the cosmos, it's inside the cosmos. Yeah. Just let me, yes, I was reading yesterday a paper by Bryan, rereading on this subject, and he has that interpretation. That's true. Now, the text says this in T2A. The text says, let someone stand at the edge of the fixed sphere and stretch out his hand upwards. If he does stretch it out, they take it that something exists outside the cosmos into which he has stretched it. And if he cannot, there will be something outside which prevents him from doing so. So the argument starts from the assumption that you have reached. That's the starting point of the argument. And then if you cannot stretch it, then given that the cosmos is behind you, this thing must be outside. No? So I think that the argument, no, as I was saying, the argument, what it proves is that either there is a body or something corporeal outside the cosmos, which renders more problematic the argument. But even in your construal, the problem is the same, because suppose that I cannot stretch it, so this means that I'm not at the edge of the cosmos, and that I go at the edge of the cosmos now, and I can stretch it. This doesn't mean that there is an extracosmic void, because there could be water, for example, and I just, as when I submerge my hand in a pool, no, and I can stretch it. Or it could happen, no, and even in your construal, the argument is consistent with the existence of an extracosmic thin body, thinner than my hand. Yeah.
Maybe, but it couldn't be an argument for extracosmic extension. It's just, it's an argument for the existence of void in that construal, right?
Officially.
Yeah.
Officially.
The construal that I was suggesting as well.
Yes.
Not for not for mere.
Yes, it is officially, but it doesn't prove validly that there is extracosmic void. No, in your construal, it doesn't prove that. Because no, let's suppose that you reach the edge of the cosmos. Finally, that you first didn't reach it because there was something that prevented you from. Okay, then let's go at the edge of this thing. And now let's suppose that we are at the edge of the cosmos because I can stretch my hand outside. No, that's your construal. But that in that case, it could still be water or air. I mean, the fact that you can stretch your hand doesn't prove that there is void, because the body that is outside could be thinner than your hand. No, so in your control, it wouldn't prove either that there is a cosmic void. And now, as for your first question, I think that it is important to remind, to recall that when the Stoics when they talk about extracosmic void, they think that void is something. It's part of their ontology. And when they say that extracosmic void, that there is something extracosmic, they are arguing against the Peripatetics, who claim that there is nothing, not even void. So they are defending a substantive claim when they say that, a substantive claim for the philosophical context at that time, when they say that there is something, or when they say that void is something and that it is outside the cosmos, it's a substantive claim, because the Aristotelians would say, well, no, there is nothing at all. It's nothing, and it's not even void, and it's something. Well, it's not something. No, it's nothing. So no. This is an additional reason for thinking that they are forced to give arguments for extracosmic void, because the Peripatetics are there, and they say, well, no. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's fine. Yeah, it was that they were arguing for the claim that there was extracosmic void, but not for the claim that there was extracosmic extension.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you. Let me give you a number again. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. So, two very quick remarks and a question. First, a translation remark.
Yes.
I think in text T1C and also probably elsewhere, I assume this is alongside the translation, diastomatic interval, where you, I think, correctly translated as extension.
Mm-hmm.
I think, well, of course, diastema can mean interval, but in this context specifically, maybe it's not the happiest translation, because to my ears, interval is something that is in between two things.
It is extension.
Whereas here we're talking about the infinite extension that is not between two bodies.
Yes.
So,
correct. Yes.
Very minor point about translation. Second minor point is on Simplicius sources, text T2C.
Mm-hmm.
I think you were envisaging the possibility that Simplicius has access to Eudemus through Theophrastus. It's speculative, but I'm wondering whether there are two more economical options. One is that Simplicius has access to Eudemus himself, because he quotes Simplicius also elsewhere. I have in mind at least two references, one in the physics commentary and one in the categories commentary on Eudemus making remarks about Plato on language, and in particular on introducing ton. He says the two meanings of one single word.
Yes.
So there is it is this an option that he has access to Eudemus himself?
One in cats and the other
in physics, the physics comment. I can give you the references,
but not this passage here.
Yeah. But another option is also that, which is what happens, I think, very often with pre-Platonian authors, or at least most of them, is that Simplicius reads peripatetic commentators through Porphyry. Because Porphyry seems to give, especially in his physics commentary and in the categories commentary, a lot of information about the earlier peripatetic commentators. So, and we know that Simplicius draws a lot from Porphyry, so that may be a chain of sources. Okay. Again, very minor point. The more substantive question is, and guess I might be wrong, but I guess this is also in the spirit of questions that have been after Vanessa and Edgar. So why, and maybe the question boils down to why the definitional claim, why an argument based on the definitional claim is actually trivial. So the question is, for the question of the paper is, why is Stoic void incorporeal, right? Wouldn't it be enough to look for an argument to answer this question, to look for arguments for the finitude of cosmos, right? So if I come up with an argument if I look for an argument for why the cosmos is finite, and we know that the Stoics also believe that, you know, through conflagration, we need more extension, right? So as long as I believe that the cosmos is bodily and it's finite, but we need more extension for conflagration, that extension cannot itself, that additional extension cannot itself be bodily, therefore it must be incorporeal, right? So I wonder whether to look for an answer to the question of your paper, we must look for an answer rather to why the cosmos is finite and not why the void itself is incorporeal. Maybe it was a bit confused, but yeah.
Okay. Hold on. Let me try to understand your point. I mean, if the cosmos were infinite, then at the conflagration we wouldn't need an extra cosmic extension for the.
But since the cosmos is finite and it's everything that is, and therefore everything that is material or bodily. Since we do need an additional extension,
yes,
and that must be bodily, right? That must be incorporeal. Then an answer to this question is entailed by an answer to the question of why the cosmos is finite. The cosmos, namely everything that is bodily.
Yes. I mean, let's suppose you prove that the cosmos is finite and you prove that there will be a conflagration. Then from these two things, it follows that there must be an extra cosmic extension in order to be able to give room or to give space for for the conflagration to occur, given the finitude or finiteness of the cosmos. Is that the idea?
What I'm suggesting is that if you get sufficient, assuming that the cosmos is everything that is,
yes,
right, and that everything that is by definition is everything that is bodily, right? If you prove that the cosmos is finite and you prove that there is going to be a conflagration and that this conflagration requires extra cosmic extension, then it will follow that that extra cosmic extension is void and that it is incorporeal.
Yes.
See what
I see. I agree.
Maybe you can also need positive arguments for the specific claim, but I wonder whether an argument based on the definitional claim is necessarily trivially true. It may be that they have many arguments.
Yes. No. Yes. Well. I as far as I can understand, this argument that you offer, which is very good, is an argument for the specific claim because it proves that there is outside the cosmos there is something that is incorporeal. I mean. In principle, it would prove that. It wouldn't prove that given what I show here, but yeah. So that would be this would be yet another option, yet another possible argument for a specific claim, which is different from the one from the hand argument, and different from the conflagration argument as reported by Cleomedes, because there is no reference in the Cleomedes version to the finiteness, no, and so yes, I think that would be a very good argument. Yes.
Can I ask a follow-up about
Yeah, of course.
Wouldn't you also need that it's unified in one chunk? The cosmos?
I don't see why not, but where is this going? Like,
Imagine I've got the cosmos,
yeah,
right? And it conflagrates, so it burns up. But there's some extra stuff out there that's not part of what I'm calling the cosmos. That's part
so
of
there's no void within.
right.
Okay, yeah, totally, yeah.
Yeah, so finite could be interpreted both as like
Yeah,
limited
absolutely.
and like actively limited insofar as like
Yes,
unified,
yes.
but
Yeah.
which I think supports your overall argument.
Yes.
Ricardo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, the point I had followed, I think, on this, that maybe some of the arguments for the finitude of the cosmos, its unity, are all where the weight would be or the work would be done to prove what's extracosmic can't be body. And the other thing, and I was thinking back to the arguments in the Timaeus for the formation of the cosmos as whole and as complete, teleos, this idea of it being complete. And there you have the arguments that if there was anything left outside, it wouldn't be complete. You have the argument that if there was anything left outside, another cosmos would form, which would make the two cosmic parts of a whole. So they would be parts, they wouldn't be a whole. And then you also have the argument that stuff would erode the cosmos. The last one's not going to matter because Stoic cosmos is perishable. But the first two feel like they would be really valid. And so just,
One is the unicity argument, no?
yeah.
That there is only one cosmos. So this excludes that there
Right.
is something extra cosmic.
But that also seems,
But what's the first one?
the first is that it can only be complete or perfect if it uses up all the substance.
I see.
But the second one is about unicity, and maybe I'm getting confused here, but it also seems important to it being a whole,
Mhm.
that it use up all the substance so that another cosmos doesn't become a part. And, another cosmos, then you have to find a whole, which then our cosmos would be a part, which seems different from it being one. But what's interesting is that the passage that I'm going to talk about tomorrow, which is often sort of excerpted as the place where we see the arguments for being relatively disposed, applied to the case of ontological holism, the larger, so, there we have the claim that only the cosmos is the only perfect teleon soma, because all of the parts are relative towards it. So there you can see where some of the Platonic claim, like if there was something outside, then the cosmos would have to be relative in some way to it. And that it would stop being a whole. And what I found really interesting is that I had actually, when I was looking at the larger context in the Plutarch, that bit that's excerpted is actually in the context of Chrysippus's argument that looks like it's probably responding to Zeno, where he's making the argument that the natural motion of the cosmos, as well as all the bodies in it, goes towards the whole, and that's an argument for its cohesion and self-sustenance. And so I don't quite know where the connection, if that's relevant, but it would be interesting for your claim that somehow the Zeno argument is part of a larger claim about why all of the body has to stay in, right? If it's flying off, we would have the problems that there would be other cosmic. So I wonder if that might also help make your case about the Zeno argument if we know that it recurs in a context where we can see Chrysippus in On Motion is talking about relative, the wholeness of the cosmos, the fact it can't be relative to anything else.
Yes. Yeah, well, I agree with you. These I think are further reasons that a Stoic could have for thinking that all there is inside the cosmos, and that there are no extra cosmic bodies. No, and yes, of course, this influence of the Timaeus, which I think is, as in many areas of their cosmology, the Stoics follow very closely the Timaeus. They differ from the Timaeus in very important points, but in general they follow many ideas of the Timaeus. So this would be one case, no? And yes, I have to think about the connection between that and the relative. I mean the cosmos as a prostipos echon, no? Because it isn't. So, and if there were some extra cosmic body, it would be. So yes, I mean that's, yeah.
One thing, the calamities that you were mentioning, that I know that passage too. And one of the arguments there is there can only be synthetic. It's finite anymore.
Oh, yes, exactly.
Because the nature unifies it into all.
Exactly.
That's an argument for why there can be no extra
That's the
cosmic
argument I was
void.
trying to remember.
There's no extra cosmic void. I feel like that. Anyways, I think maybe we were going back to that passage.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. Is there anybody not had a turn who wants a turn again?
Well, I just had a very quick question.
Should go for a bit. Yeah, please.
Does it matter for your argument of whether the extra cosmic void is infinite or not? Or does it matter for your argument whether the extra cosmic void is infinite or not?
Well, no, I mean, no, but it does matter for the Stoics, no? Because they seem to argue that it is infinite. So one major topic of discussion here is it is an issue that was dealt with apparently by Posidonius, although there is some discussion about this, is that the conflagration argument cannot prove the infinity of extracosmic void or extension, because given that the cosmos is finite, no, I mean, it will grow and it will increase its volume very much at the conflagration, but this mass of fire won't be infinite because it's just the result of the transformation of a finite amount of matter. So the conflagration argument that wouldn't prove the infinity of extracosmic extension or void. But the Stoics have arguments for the infinity of extracosmic void, no? And there are at least two arguments. One of them is this idea that that something incorporeal cannot have a limit, a bodily limit. So given that it cannot have a bodily limit, it is infinite. No, I mean, it cannot be limited by a body or no, and so it follows that the extracosmic void, I mean, is infinite in the direction away from Earth. No, and
So that seems to suggest that it's sort of basic, that void dice are incorporeals, namely that they can be infinite, that they are infinite. That seems to give you something like that, they're infinite.
yes, exactly. It's an argument based on the incorporeality. Yes, and so it is an argument that presupposes that outside the cosmos there is something incorporeal. No? Yeah, I mean, once you prove that it is incorporeal, then you can prove that it is infinite through that argument.
Because you think it's incorporeal, then you go for infinite.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I've had two goes.
You had two goes?
Yeah.
I don't remember that. Okay.
Okay.
I guess I just am having this thought about incorporeality as an explanandum.
Yes.
Like, we know that these things are taken to be incorporeal. And so this is just a sort of general, very vague comment that I've often struggled to understand why we're trying to explain why void is incorporeal, particularly that it's called tokena.
Yeah.
So that is just a general sort of comment that it's like a vague worry that I have, that it's sort of an odd explanandum.
Yes.
And I have a question. Okay. The question is, what is a mass of heat?
What is a mass of heat?
Yeah.
In Stoic ontology?
Yeah. I mean, to me, it would be some fire.
Fire, yes.
But of course, if you heat a pan, the fire doesn't actually go in the pan.
No.
So I just was struggling, and this came up for me with the questions that Ian was asking. I was just clear what you had in mind in talking about a mass of heat that blends.
Well, yeah. Well, the fire doesn't go inside the pan according to modern physics, but for the Stoics, it does go inside. No, I mean, No. This text about the second passage about Crassus, it says, also they say that fire passes completely through iron. So it does traverse the iron, no? It goes inside. It's not just and the heat or the fire doesn't hit the pan by contact, no? Which is how well I at least see it. It's they actually no or yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I had that same thought, but I was thinking of that, and I've always wondered about that fire passing through iron. But the point of the fire passing through iron is it's visible, right? You still see it visibly present in the iron, which is not the case with something that's been heated. Like I was thinking of one of the examples of something that's disposed, not relatively disposed. You know, winter is air that's been cooled by the departure of the sun.
Mhm.
So the cold is not body in the air at that point. It's disposed as cool, the state. So the fire through the iron seems to be a particularly phenomenologically compelling example of the body iron pervaded by the visible presence of heat or fire, sorry,
Yes.
but not fire as the capacity to heat or a mass of heat. That difference seems salient.
It is salient, but I mean, what according to you, what the Stoics think is that in the fire iron example, the fire does go through the iron, which is yes. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, I mean.
Well, I was saying it's not just a mass of heat. So I don't know, like heat as a quality is different from fire as a body.
Well, yes, strictly. Well, yeah, hot is a quality, hotness, but heat is a type of fire. You have heat, you have flame, you have ether, no, ether. Hotness is the quality, and that is an incorporeal, or well, we will know later what it is, no? But heat. I mean, heat would be the analog of fire, and coldness would be no. Sorry, in the case of whiteness, no. Whiteness is the quality, and white can be a predicate, being white, that is an incorporeal. But the white, like I said, well, the white thing there, well, that is a body too, no? And so I think that in the case of fire, you have fire, heat, ether, and anthrax, no?
But in the case
cold.
of wine, wouldn't you have the fire acting on the wine? It's one body acting on another body to produce the incorporeal predicate being hot.
Being hot, yes.
But the fire need not remain as a body mixed with the other bodies. Whereas the fire present in the iron is visibly still mixed. It's not just that the iron is hot, the fire seems present in the iron as a body rather than as merely producing an incorporeal predicate.
No, that I think is correct. I mean, not every causal relation is through blending. No, of course. I mean, there are things that act on another and that cause them to have predicates by contact. And I can imagine that there are cases of heating or no, where yes, of course, that may be. I mean, I don't see why not for a Stoic, no, and but yeah, but there are cases where fire does go through the other body, as in the iron, and I think that this point that you make about the empirical evidence is a very strong point, because you can see how the iron becomes red So this redness is proof that the fire is inside. No. Yeah.
Last question, please. Yes, 5 minutes.
So I have another question about the conflagration expanding, possibly expanding into an extra cosmic body, right? So one of the hypotheticals to illustrate the invalidity of the argument was that the cosmos would expand as it is converted into fire, and then it would blend with the extra cosmic body, proving that, or sorry, showing that these arguments are valid, that we need further claim that there's no extra cosmic body. But I thought we could just sort of keep like kicking the can down the road. So if the cosmos expands as it's converted into fire and then blends with the extra cosmic body, it will then consume the extra cosmic body, right? Until eventually we have no more extra cosmic body that it can expand and blend into, right?
Well,
Couldn't they say something like that?
Yes, you could, of course. Exactly. Just as the fire consumed the cosmos, it will also consume the extra cosmic body, and then you would need more room for further expansion and so on ad infinitum. Is that the? Yeah, well,
So
I mean,
we've run out of extra cosmic body,
yes,
proving the existence of
void.
Yeah.
Yes,
Maybe.
yes. That would be.
It's kind of analogous to the hand argument, and like
Yes.
keep going and keep putting the hand out, kind of. Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for all your possible Stoic arguments for extra cosmic void. But I think we all agree that the arguments, even in the sources, are not, well, not as they stand. They do not prove the existence of extra cosmic. Or no, or you don't agree with that? Maybe not. Okay. Never mind. Yes.
Thank you very much.